So moving into the 60s, you were in administration as well at the Georgia state level, right?
Actually, at the end of the 50s, I determined that if I was going to stay in education, that I needed to have a better grounding in the understanding the school operation. And I went out for my master's degree and got my degree in nutrition and education leadership. And then my doctorate later on was in supervision and leadership. So I have long felt that it is very important if you are a school nutrition or child nutrition leader at the district level or at the school or at the state level, that you really need to have a balance between understanding how schools work and fitting within that system, and also understanding the food service industry. It's a partnership between the two. What I remember most from the 60s is that even though I wasn't a hippie in the 60s, I really bought into the Kennedy concept of, you know, that's not what you can do for, what your country can do for you, but what can you do for your country? And then he said, never let it be said of us that we put a man on the moon in the decade of the 60s and didn't put food in the mouths of hungry children. So I was really caught up in that concept of being an activist and was working hard to try to eliminate some of the needs that were not expressed or provided for in the National School Lunch Act and to fill in the gaps. We need to be concerned with how children ate all day long and all year long. We needed to think about what they had before they come to school in the morning and in the classroom. And the Civil Rights Act had a major impact on the school nutrition program because there was a recognition between that sometimes we think it's a racial issue. It's really an economic issue. And so we realized that there were a lot of children that simply did not have enough resources or come from family with the resources. And at one time, the Atlanta papers asked me, how many hungry children do you have in Georgia? I said, oh, we have at least 100,000 who are not able to eat, and the schools don't have enough money. They can't provide meals to those. And then the chairman of the State Board of Education was asked, what do you agree with your director of child nutrition programs that you have 100,000 children? And he said, well, I don't think I agree with it, but I respect her, you know. So we had a very amiable relationship with the State Board of Education and a wonderful, wonderful time.
But you pushed your point of view.
Pushed my point of view. The day that I came to Georgia for the interview to go with the State Department of Education was the day that the Georgia School Food Service Association was formed. So I was in on the beginning of that. And as a new kid on the block, I got to do a lot of things like grunge work. I would be chairman of the local arrangements committee, and when the gurus came to town, I would get to meet with the Thelma Flanagans and the John Perrimans and the Evelyn Terrells and those people who were in strong leadership positions at that time. And my director, Eleanor Pryor, really believed in being involved and believed in the partnership between the School Nutrition Association and the State Department of Education, that at the state agency we needed to work together. There were things that the association could do that the state agency couldn't do. And so we developed a strong partnership there in the early 50s of the two groups working very closely together. My first job at the national level was as Southeast Regional Director. And almost immediately the next year I became National Program Chairman when the convention was held in...
This was in the School Food Service Association.
Yes. But I was also I was very active in the Georgia Dietetic Association and had the privilege of serving in leadership positions there. I was president of the Georgia Dietetic Association about the 1956, 1955, and 1956. So I was active in the Georgia Dietetic Association and in the Georgia School Nutrition Association. I have to go back and say the impact of the 60s what was happening there in the late 60s set the stage for much growth in public policy, in the improvement or expansion of public policy, or the clarification of public policy on child nutrition programs. And by that time, Senator Herman Talmadge had become chairman of the Agriculture Committee. And he was a very conservative person and kind of felt like the breakfast program that breakfast should be a responsibility of the family. The initial breakfast program that started in 1966 was a pilot program and only went to select schools that had high levels of economic need. And so Senator Talmadge asked us to arrange a tour so that he could talk with principals and superintendents himself and find out if there was a need and if it made a difference in the education of children. So after that tour that began down in the middle part of the state and ended up in Atlanta, he said to me, Josephine, I want you to ride back to the hotel with me and my council, and I want to introduce a bill to establish breakfast for all children. And I want you to help my staff be a part of drafting that legislation. So from that came Public Law 91-248, which Senator Talmadge called the transformation. And through that piece of legislation, every child, the legislation was provided that the schools would provide school meals to all children, and that as a part of that, in the next 3 or 4 years, 15 pieces of legislation were passed, just boom, 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 ultimately establishing performance funding so that school administrators would be assured of having money from the beginning of the school year till the end of the school year to provide meals to children who qualified for free or reduced price meals.
So you changed his mind.
Well, I didn't change his mind. It was going to the people. He listened to the
evidence changed his mind.
The evidence changed his mind.
Yes.
And I was just a catalyst to help get it done. And I didn't do it. Thelma Flanagan and other state leaders and local leaders had the same. They shared their philosophy, and I bought into it because I believed that nutrition was important to the health and well-being of the children.